Counselor Curtis. This is the Jimmy Doan Show. We are coming to you live. It is 4 o'clock on Sunday,
23rd.
September 23rd. Jimmy Doan is here.
Jimmy Doan is right here, ready to go.
He is
We got news today.
alive.
We got news today.
Let's get to it.
Okay, well, it's interesting because most of the news is simply a continuation of what we've been talking about.
Yeah, man, I hesitate to even mention that.
Well, a couple of things.
Because we covered it.
We have covered it in spades, and I guess what we've seen since our last show was just basically a continuation. There have been a couple of one or two little small developments. One is
and of course, we're talking about the Kavanaugh situation.
the Kavanaugh is one, and the declassification of documents. Trump has ordered.
Well, we mentioned that. We mentioned that last time.
Yeah, but he went back on it a little bit. The deep state people of the DOJ and all those people said no, we're going to disobey you. We're going to redact them anyway. They have to be looked at by an independent, like our own people. We're going to examine this stuff ourselves and determine what's in the national interest and so forth. And a lot of people are looking at this saying, what could possibly be, affecting this? Is just no way. So the plan, basically they're not getting released.
Okay, well, that's the Russia stuff. I mean, there's
right. Well, there's more to that. There's more to that, and I'm going to talk about this.
To me, there were 3 Trump things that happened this week,
Okay.
and then plus the Kavanaugh thing.
Right.
So which one do you want to talk about first?
We can talk. I got Russiagate right here.
Okay, Russiagate.
Russiagate, New York Times, 10,000-word piece on the Russiagate near the end of an exhaustively long piece meant to chronicle the, quote, evidence that few are likely ever to read in full. 10,000, that's a novel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a novel. Mr. Trump's frustration with the Russian investigation is not surprising. He is right that no public evidence has emerged showing that his campaign conspired with Russia in the election interference or accepted Russian money. And what's interesting is that was also that was the last paragraph of this 10,000 words was that the investigation in the New York Times, the investigation, and I think it was Rosenstein that said this. That said, up to now, we have found nothing, 0. We have no evidence, and that was like at the very end of the article. So you had to plow through and get, what you normally do is to go to the end and read backwards.
Well, I thought the big issue was that they had said that Rosenstein had come out and said something about he wanted to wear the wire and catch.
Okay, it turns out, I'm guessing this was satire. I'm guessing this was said as a joke.
Okay, yeah, and I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, we had to do the 25th Amendment, and we'll wear a wire, and you're kidding me.
Yeah, exactly. And this to me is like the Stork or Struck comment. It's like, we'll stop him. Well, you don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
So what if he does want to wear a wire? Okay, it doesn't bother me any. But I thought that was an interesting development in the Trump thing. I also thought. What they said, of course, that Cohen had a long meeting with Mueller this week.
Yeah.
To me, big deal, but my Facebook page lit up this time for sure. Rocky, we're going to pull a rabbit out of the hat. He'll be out. He'll be out.
That's right.
Cohen has now released the damaging dirt.
All right.
Not before, but now. For sure.
Right.
Collusion, conspiracy, whatever. We'll see.
Well, it's interesting. Let's see. Here's a part of an editorial on this same stuff. This is the dilemma that President Trump faces as he decides whether to fire Rod Rosenstein following revelations that the Deputy Attorney General allegedly talked about taping the president, rounding up cabinet officials to invoke the 25th Amendment. Of course, see, that's not, I mean, that's, no.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Didn't happen.
Non-issue.
And this guy says, I have come to accept that an unelected group of well-educated, experienced individuals running these departments became inebriated with their own power during the last election campaign and apparently came to believe that they were on a mission to stop, defeat, or remove President Trump and his associates for any crimes they would find or maybe they could manufacture. So of course what's happened is all these guys now have book and speaking. That's part of the deal, I mean, it's Woodward and all these guys.
Speaking of speaking deals,
yeah.
to me, the biggest story of the week concerning Trump in particular was the lines at his speeches. Did you notice he made 2 speeches on behalf of some candidates out in the Midwest?
Okay.
At one of them, in 95-degree heat, the line was half a mile long.
Okay.
At the other one, the line was 2 miles reportedly long.
Oh my God.
Jammed them into the stadium. Now, from my perspective, what I think of is if people are coming out to see you, they will come out to vote. And I would not be surprised if instead of a blue wave, we get a red tide.
I'm with you. I think this is all, you know, the media, the mainstream media, and a lot of the Democrats are praying for the, you know, and they're talking it up. And you know, if we talk it up enough, maybe we'll have the blue wave. You know, let's just wait and see what happens on November 6th.
Yeah, apparently Michael Moore's new film.
Oh, which reminds me, Michael Moore. Yeah, his. I got a little thing here on that. Let's see. Just a second here.
Film didn't open so well.
No, it came in 8th on the. Let's see, where is it here? Fahrenheit 11.9 limped to an 8th place finish in North America with 3.1 million. Can you imagine 3.1 million from 1,700 theaters? Pre-release tracking has suggested it at 5 to 6 million at least. So he got half of what the expectations were. And I read a review. I heard a review on it. And it's from, God, who was it that did the review? It was one of those guys had a podcast. I think he might be on Shapiro's site or something, on one of those sites. I clicked on it and listened to it, and it's a scathing review. He said, you know, the guy is obviously delusional. He hates Trump so much. You know, as far as he's convinced, the Russiagate is done science. It's done. Total collusion. That's why he won. Blah blah blah. He goes on and on. He is.
He seems
the
to
hyperbole. The hyperbole in the movie. And I thought maybe about going to go see it, you know, but I got a feeling after listening to this review, I said, you know, I can't stomach that. I listen to stuff like Slate, and you know, and Dahlia Lithwick, who's their lawyer person, and you know, she is. You can tell they had on the Slate podcast, whatever it was. I forget. It's one that come out on Thursdays. They have 3 people, and John Dickerson was out of town.
Careful.
Oh yeah, white power. Did I tell you? Do you see my tweet?
No.
If you watch Trump's, we had to watch it the other night with Ms. Jimmy.
He does it.
In Las Vegas. He does it all the time.
Oh wow!
And no, seriously, he did it 50 times during the thing.
Well, you know, it's not only the OK sign; it's sort of a natural hand position.
I understand, but what I'm saying is what I'm laughing at.
I do this one sometimes, you know, with the second finger.
I'm laughing that, you know, you can see the conspiracy people, because he's always done that. That's one of his ways. He does a couple of things.
Yeah, there's somebody down in somebody's basement right now going down the rabbit hole, chronicling all the times and trying to connect all the invisible dots.
Anyway, this guy gave a scathing review, and obviously the Michael Moore has gone hyperbolic on his hate for Trump. It's just unbelievable.
Well, he was always sort of that way. Here's what I'll say. First of all, his movie made a lot more than my best movie made.
Yeah.
So I'll give him that. And I didn't see it, but the last one that I saw, I can't remember if it was the Bowling for Columbine or maybe it was the Canadian healthcare one, but what it was just a series of anecdotes.
Right.
It was like a dozen encounters between him and one other group of completely sympathetic people to his cause that had some story to tell, and they were little vignettes.
Well, he did the same thing on education.
Okay.
He went over to Europe and toured Finland's education, you know, the classrooms and the department of in all those countries over there, like 10 countries.
So an exhaustive study.
And it was interesting because actually some of the stuff sort of made sense in a way. You could, you know, he went over there with an American flag, and he said he was going to take back some stuff from Europe. So it was vintage Moore,
Okay.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
And he made some okay points.
Right,
It's
right.
Interesting. So I went. I mean, I sort of semi enjoyed that one.
Uh-huh.
That was okay. But apparently this one is just off the rails. I mean, when I see. When I hear stuff like that, it just gets to. I mean, I'd walk in the theater, I'd have to walk out, I'm sure.
Yeah, to me, it's like watching the late night host these days.
Oh, exactly.
The comedy, it's all one-sided, so
Right.
you know which way the joke is going every single time.
Bill Maher. I've
It-
stopped watching Bill Maher.
Me too. I used to like him too,
Me too.
and I just can't. Like it's too predictable.
Yeah.
And I'm not just gonna laugh just because they say Trump sucks. I mean that
Yeah.
doesn't. That's not creative enough. I mean,
No, it's not. Let's see. There was something else here. Let's see. I got the Russiagate thing. I wanted to find out if there was the other thing. I guess is the Kavanaugh. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, real quick. Sure.
The reason I wanted to talk about the Kavanaugh thing, there was the guy who really nailed it was Scott Adams. His
Oh, yeah.
Periscope, which is then posted on YouTube, I think.
This show brought to you by Scott Adams.
Yeah, that's brought to you by Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert.
That's right.
And he's a big persuader. He was one of the guys that called Trump the winner a year and a half before when he came down.
Yeah,
practically-
lucky shot. Lucky
Oh
shot.
yeah, right. No, he said he's.
No, I like his persuasion analysis. As we know, he's a hypnotist. I believe in the hypnotists. I've studied them too. We know engineer Eric was a certified
Yeah.
nationwide. So
Well, he's not only a hypnotist, but he also was a neuro.
NLP. Yeah, I even got that certification. NLP.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we respect Scott and his opinion. So what do you say?
Well, he said, isn't it interesting that we have literally seen no pictures of what's her face, Ford? Literally,
What do you mean?
there
I've
are
seen a couple
two
of
pictures.
pictures.
No, what you've seen is a couple of her with dark glasses. You can hardly make her out,
Okay.
and the other one is from years ago. And that's it.
I saw one of her splayed out on a picnic table with a bunch of beer cans around. I don't know if it was her. If it was
No,
just
see, I don't know about that, but basically, if you call her up, you'll see two pictures. That's it.
Okay, so-
She's in dark glasses. You're not even sure it's her.
right.
And then the other one is from 20 years ago.
So what's the point?
The point is,
She doesn't exist. She's a meme.
well, something. I mean,
What? No.
no. Let's think about it for a second. This is amazing.
She's a professor, and
Professor, right? But I mean, there is
all of her classes are video.
no. I mean, look, she's it's
She's
stunning
an
to-
avatar from Japan. Is what she-
something. Well, again, Scott Adams goes into this in depth and says, she's so far she's in hiding. She went 3,000 miles to hide out. Wait a minute, let me finish.
Go ahead.
And so here she called up her and Shapiro talks about this a lot. He had a great podcast on this.
Okay.
On why this was so ludicrous that her demands. I think we might have talked about them. Was it the Kavanaugh go first?
Yeah.
And defend himself against what?
Right, yeah. They're going to blow that stuff off. So,
Okay.
all right. So, what did he say?
What he said was, so the demands are there, and now apparently they have tentatively, as we do this on Sunday, tentatively they're thinking maybe this next week sometime
Right.
she's going to go testify. She had a whole bunch of demands, and only these people and only those people and blah blah blah, no attorneys and all this. It was just crazy stuff. But if she does show up, you can bet that the paparazzi are going to be having 1,000 pictures of her suddenly, new pictures.
Oh, sure.
But I mean, the point is, it's up until now nothing. I mean,
Well, she's not a public figure, except I will say this. Do you know she used to work for Joe Biden?
yes,
Well, that's not exactly in hiding.
no,
Do you know that she had something to do with Sonia Sotomayor?
yes, she did, right? Yes. Oh, with her nomination, she worked on that. That's right.
Well, okay, now see, to me, this is the interesting thing. This cuts the other way. I mean, my thought is, one of her complaints is that she hasn't said anything up until now because he's a powerful figure. She works for the vice president. How much more powerful figure do you need? He's the second most powerful guy, arguably, in the country.
Right.
I mean, he can call the Secret Service in like a swarm. SWAT has nothing on what he can do. He could probably call an airstrike in on somebody's freaking
Well,
house.
he could call an airstrike in on SWAT.
That's what I mean. Okay. So where? To me, I'm starting to not believe her contention that she's afraid of this particular power of the guy. Now, and also it is. It further smacks of some kind of a scheme from the standpoint of she had a hand in having the other side's justices appointed. In other words, she's very interested, very, very interested in Supreme Court appointments. It's not just like a pastime for her. It was a part of her active participation in life and the government, but yet she's not a political person. That is, she's not elected or anything. So you have to be doubly interested to do that in your spare time and be that involved in it. So, I mean, to me, that's interesting. But look, what I said before still holds, which is you bring them both in. What's your story? You tell it to them. You give them reasonable accommodations you would give to anybody else, which is you want a day delay or two, fine. You want to be behind closed doors, fine. You want to have a limited number of questions. I don't know. I mean, you can't really limit the questions that can be asked of you. If you're going to testify, one of the deals is you subject yourself to questions. Mm-hmm. It's sort of, you've opened the door to this line of questioning. Now, if she limits her testimony to certain things, then they should limit their questions to those things as well.
All you have to do is say, where was this again? Well, what's the address of this place?
Well, look, you go in there.
What was the date exactly?
You say, "Tell us your story."
Okay.
That's it. You say, "Tell us your story," and she tells the story, and presumably she will have a very well prepared statement that has been rehearsed and cross-examined and everything, and she will present it all out there, and then presumably she will try to take up as much time as possible so that they ask her a limited number of questions, and maybe she asks for a recess or gets upset or whatever and ditches.
Crying.
Well, sure, why not? I mean, and you can't. I mean, there's no way to tell if it's genuine or not until you see it. And then you can make the call. To now, we know nothing except it reeks like a trick. But you hold off. This is the same thing as innocent until proven guilty. Is you believe her until she gives the testimony.
Now, so far she has released nothing of substance. Zero.
Well, no, that's not true.
It's just her word. This is what happened.
No, she provided a witness. I mean, she named somebody else in the room,
and he denied it.
Yeah, but he has a reason to deny it.
Again, he said, she said.
What?
I wasn't there. God, that never happened. Blah, blah, judge.
I know, but what I'm getting at is, if these two guys attacked her, they would both have a very, very, very serious reason to deny it. And they would think to cover each other. I mean, that would be... What? That's exactly what would happen.
I suppose, but there's just so many other holes in this thing that I just don't believe in. And
you're right. Like I said, there's a bunch of holes in the way that it came about. The timing, all the different timings, all the different reports, everything like that. But it still comes down to, we haven't heard nothing until we've heard from the witnesses. I mean, to me, we've heard 1% of what we're going to hear.
Well, that may be, but
10%.
The idea that she could demand certain features.
No, it's ridiculous. And
of course, it's ridiculous.
She's not getting that.
And her attorney, is in on this, making these demands.
Well, why not? Look, you always ask for stuff from the other side if you're in a legal situation. You come in and you say, "Judge, this is outrageous. We ask the court to dismiss this case," even though it's totally, you're going to lose your butt. You go in there and you say that because you have to. That's the advocacy system.
I'm giving a 75% chance that she never shows.
I thought that last week, but now she's made some more arrangements from...
They haven't been finalized, I don't think. As we speak now at 4 o'clock or whatever it is on Sunday, I think they're supposed to maybe finalize them tomorrow.
I still think it's better than even odds she doesn't show up. But I think it's more likely now. I mean... her problem is, like what I just said a minute ago, which is if she shows up, there's no way they're not going to ask her questions. And if she's BSing, it's going to look really bad. Somebody's going to ask her a question that's going to make her trip up because it's just too hard.
You know, those guys are experts at asking questions too.
A couple of them
Or
are. Some of them
prosecutors.
suck.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
I mean, some of them
Some
suck.
of them are going
bad.
to grandstand.
Right, exactly. And you know, just because you're a prosecutor doesn't mean you know how to do it. You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
so. Well, all right. So we'll see. We'll find out next time.
So anyway, this is what I just said. Yeah, they also rejected her proposal that she testify after Kavanaugh, a position lawyers consider advantageous.
Well,
because
she is testifying after Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh already went.
Well, no, but what he's going to have a chance to rebut whatever she
Well,
says.
but she hasn't said it to the committee yet.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's that she wants to ask him to respond to innuendo. I mean, there's.
Yeah. Well,
That doesn't make any sense, you know. It's just
no, none of it makes any sense.
you know,
for her.
he's already gone. If she has something to say, then she goes, and then if that changes the story, then we'll see what he says after that. You know.
I think that's true. Okay, let me just see here what I've got next on this item. That's Russiagate. That's all taken care of. Moving along, the Heat Nike has taken over its controversial advertising campaign featuring former NFL starter Colin Kaepernick seems to have had another effect, burnishing the iconic brand's appeal to investors. The stock has gone risen. They've had sales increases across the board, everything. And as I said, people vote with their wallets, and one clear winner in athletic apparel remains Nike.
Yeah. They're up 36% on the year or something.
Yeah, I mean,
5% since Kaepernick announcement. I mean, good for them, man. Like I said,
that's what I'm saying. Comparing Nike to Apple in its ability to create demand by rolling out, quote, must-have, unquote, products.
Well, okay. I mean, yeah, I guess. We'll see. I mean, they've had a good business model for decades.
I know, but I mean, you maybe a couple of people are going to cut off their swipe, but I mean, the simple fact is you can't watch a football game or anything like that without seeing that swipe.
Yeah.
So that's it. Okay, next item. Swiss. This I thought was interesting. Swiss voters in one of the cantons or whatever they are, voters approved a burqa ban. It's called St. Gallen region after two-thirds black veil crackdown. So there's two-thirds of the voters said you can't wear a burqa in public. But Switzerland's largest Muslim organization, the Islamic Central Council, told women to continue to cover their faces, and it vows legal action. But I mean, this is what is amazing to me. The Swiss pretty much they're for having 18 or 22 cantons or whatever they are. They're kind of unified, you know, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Small country and everything,
Mm-hmm.
but you know they're apparently they're coming up for a nationwide vote to ban the face covering, as I think they already have in France and not Belgium or something. They've already banned, you know, face covering.
Mm-hmm.
But in Switzerland, you know, I don't think those guys are going to. I think it's kind of interesting that these people they go to Switzerland. I mean, of course, you wonder how they got in there. Switzerland doesn't just allow anybody in. You need to be able to support yourself or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you are decide to be not Swiss. You know, they're not going to like that.
Well, it's like I always say, the first generation of immigrants doesn't give up all their customs and traditions. They give up the stuff they have to give up, but their own measures of decency and things like that they keep with them for one generation. Their kids will all be Swiss.
I didn't bring it over here. I meant to bring it over here. There is in a portion of London, East London, there are posters going up all over the place that say, notice this is a Sharia law zone, and then it has the circles with the cross through them.
Mm-hmm.
No drinking, no gambling, no women, no loose women. You know, it has like 8 things there and these the Sharia law rules here.
Right.
And it's all over this particular area.
So, and we talked about this before, in our big cities we have Chinatowns and little Koreas and little Havanas and things like that. Now, we subject all of those people to our rules and
Right.
laws.
That's right.
We do not have exceptions where you can't be like, oh, this is the way we do it here. No.
You do murder in Chinatown.
You go to court
That's
in
it.
New York City.
That's right.
At the freaking same courthouse everybody else is going
Right.
to. Exactly. But as we know, some of those old world cities like Paris and London, they have, I mean, they've been around for 500, 600, 700 years, and they have made further accommodations for their immigrant populations, and I don't know how far it goes. I'm
Yeah, well,
not an
those,
expert.
actually, those London and Paris will go back to Roman times, so that's how,
Well, I mean, in terms of the size and independence of their cities.
okay.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, obviously.
Anyway, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out in a way. I just thought it was interesting that the Swiss voters, very practical type people, have said no way. Okay, the White House is considering a draft executive order for President Donald Trump that would instruct federal antitrust and law enforcement agencies to open probes into the practices of Alphabet, Inc.'s Google, Facebook, and other social media companies. They want the antitrust people to look into, well, of course, I'm looking at this saying, why? I mean, what are you doing? This is
the Teddy Roosevelt move.
Yeah, it really
from
is.
hell. This is, I'll save you.
yeah,
Y'all don't like those railroads? Don't worry. I'll do something.
yeah.
And he's going to run in there and
He's
effect
gonna-
some arbitrary
as I said-
standard.
As I've said before, the market was in the process of fixing the robber barons. I mean,
Right.
they were going down, as I said before one time, when Rockefeller at his peak had controlled something like 80 or 90% of the refining, and then by the time they did the breakup, he was down to like 10% or 12%.
And you think about the difference in terms of the infrastructure that's required for the success of steel and railroad companies versus the infrastructure required for the success of an internet company.
Right.
It's Electron. It's a program.
Right.
Somebody could come along tomorrow with Google and say, look, our blockchain algorithm promises anonymity and
Well, they've
objectivity.
already got it. You can already use DuckDuckGo.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, DuckDuckGo or of course you can also sign up for a VPN.
Exactly. And the reason the people are paying for VPNs is exactly because of this. The market is literally providing a solution
You don't have
at
to.
the exact price that it's worth.
That's right.
Right now.
That's right.
So you just wait around, it'll fix it, but Trump was not going to do that. It doesn't sound like. Now this is a draft memo.
Yeah, I know.
So-
I know that. So the document doesn't name any companies, but we all know whatever that is.
Yeah. No, it names all companies, all internet platforms.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Now this is another thing. Besides the Alex Jones has now been, by the way, banned from PayPal. They decided to cut off his money supply.
Yikes.
Because they said he's selling the medicines that he sell are fake medicines. They call them
What?
Yeah, what? Really? When you look at the penis enhancement ads that are
Right.
everywhere,
Are you sure?
yeah, they are all over the place. And I mean, you can't if you don't have your spam filter on. One of these days, what you do is you go to your junk file,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and you go look and see what you've been spammed with. Oh my God, this stuff is.
I'm feeling pumped up.
That's right. So anyway, it's fascinating that you wonder these guys. Alex Jones is
They
of course
protected us from Alex.
Yeah, protected. But outspoken conservative actor James Woods,
Aha.
who's a pretty famous actor, was suspended from posting to Twitter over a 2-month-old satirical meme, which clearly parodies a Democratic advertisement campaign. While the actor's tweets are still visible, he is unable to post new content.
I was wondering. I haven't seen him in a couple of weeks.
Right, there you go. That's exactly right. The offending tweet from July 20th features three millennial-aged men with new male smiles, quote, and a text that reads, "We're making a women's vote worth more by staying home." Above it, Woods writes, "Pretty scary that there's a distinct possibility that this could be real. Not likely, but in this day and age, an absolute liberal insanity, it's at least possible." And so they for that tweet, they've said you can't post anymore. This is, it's just, these, as I say, these guys are cutting their own graves.
Yeah.
They're digging themselves,
Cutting their own graves.
whatever.
They're slicing their.
That's it. Let me see
They're
here.
digging their own throats.
Let me see what else I got here. Okay. A couple more things. Let's see. Swiss voters, White House draft. Fair enough. Okay, that's good. Okay, got two more things here. The United States is preparing a, quote, series of actions, unquote, in the coming days to increase pressure on the Venezuelan government, U.S. Secretary Mike Pompeo said to Fox News on Friday. You'll see in the coming days a series of actions that continue to increase the pressure level against Venezuelan leadership folks who are working directly against the best interests of the Venezuelan people. We're determined to ensure that the Venezuelan people get their way. He did not give further details on the nature of planned actions. So, meddling. I mean, they're always talking about the Russians, who arguably had nothing to do with our elections.
Well,
and
I think clearly the United States did something to him in a house somewhere in suburban Maryland.
Yeah.
And
right. Right. Well, I thought this was interesting, though. Venezuela's information ministry did not immediately respond to a request for comment.
For information.
And then I went quickly to 1984.
Mm-hmm.
The hero is Winston.
Mm-hmm.
Winston works in the Ministry of Truth, where he alters historical records to fit the needs of the party.
Mm-hmm.
The Ministry of Truth, doesn't that sound like the Information Ministry?
Yeah, where he alters records.
Alters, I love this, where he alters historical records. Because, you remember it was so obvious. What was really hysterical was during the Cold War when you would see new photos of the Politburo, not the Politburo, but the leaders of Russia, mm-hmm. and suddenly the new picture would be exactly the same as the old one, except they didn't have Photoshop then, but they had to physically go in there and rub out, with some of these.
One guy was now just a post
down the memory hole.
Right.
He wasn't there. What? He never was there.
Did you see, interestingly, sort of along these lines, that Marine Le Pen was potentially ordered to undergo some psychiatric treatment?
Now, what is Marine Le Pen? What is he right now?
She
is
she was the Prime Minister of France or something.
Okay, but she's not anymore.
No, I don't think so.
No, it's Macron or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, but so they've decided that she is now needs. They're going to commit her to a mental hospital for psychological.
Okay, now in the committer's defense, they are saying that this is totally routine, which is interesting. But yeah, for every time somebody alleges, what it is she committed an insensitivity crime by posting a tweet which showed a decapitation of a
Oh right, that's right. Yeah.
And so and she was of course denouncing it and calling out Daesh, ISIS, whatever, for doing it, and for that they may give her the psych exam. It reminds me of Brazil in the end.
Yeah.
That's how they get him. Is you're crazy.
Yeah.
And they're trying to do it to Trump right now. Oh, you're just crazy. Well, we can't. You deny global warming. Oh, you deny our policies. You're crazy. Therefore.
Well, now when you say Brazil, people have to know that this is the movie.
The movie Brazil.
The movie Brazil, which is not the Boys of Brazil, but Brazil.
Well, and we also were talking about Brazil earlier as well. So.
Yeah, right. So we want to confirm, but that was, probably one of the hysterical movies of the time. Showing what a fly can do. The way it started was the guy slapped a fly and created a period or something on the document.
Right.
Started all this
tunnel to buttle.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, the last thing I've got here is Iran's President Hossein Rouhani said Sunday that an unmanned U.S. allied country in the Persian Gulf was behind the attack on a military parade that killed 25 people and wounded nearly 70. So, for some reason, they had this big military parade, and the United States was responsible for the killing. He did not identify those behind Saturday's attack, which had claimed to be an Arab separatist group. He could have been referring to Saudi Arabia or any place else. Close U.S. military allies. All of the small mercenary countries that we see in the region are backed by America. It is the Americans who instigate them and provide them with the necessary means to commit these crimes. So, again,
that's probably true. I mean, those are probably our guys that we back in Iran, and we're offering them. We probably do provide them arms and support and tactical stuff. And they attacked a military parade in Tehran.
Yeah.
I mean, that's putting it out there. I mean, man, I mean, they killed 27 members of the guard and wounded 50 more or
Yeah,
something.
right.
I mean, geez, that's going after him right. I mean, talk about a morale hit. That's a
suppose.
big public statement.
Yeah.
That the
Well, they might
leaders
handle
are-
it the same way Chinese did on Tiananmen Square.
Well, and
Crackdown.
that is how Iran typically would handle stuff like that. But that's what I'm getting at is something this brazen almost shows that there may be some weakening of the power structure there.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, for them to be able to, for them to think that they could pull this off without getting Tiananmen squared,
Yeah.
to me, speaks to either possibly the damage that the sanctions have done, or just generally overall the bad condition of the
Well, the sanctions, apparently
People
our
in power.
sanctions are taking, the sanctions that we have imposed on them, and also the ones on the tariff business on China, apparently is really taking its toll. The idea is that, I mean, I've read some people, of course you've read both sides. I read both sides. Some people say that this
Yeah.
is an active war, and other people saying the Chinese are going to cry uncle here pretty soon because they're losing their butts.
right.
Some of their businesses are, their business. There are businesses that are going out of business.
Yeah, the Jack Ma announcement. Well, not out of business, but he's scaling back
Yeah.
his ambition
Yeah.
a bit. I don't know whether that has anything to do with the sanctions. It was certainly a significant amount of cash that he was sanctioning.
Yeah.
At $500 billion or something in terms of overall. So I guess we'll see where it goes still.
Yeah.
Speaking of China, there's been a sort of a new report come out about their social credit score
Oh my God.
situation.
Yes. Oh my God.
So, of course, people who don't know, what they've done is there are cameras everywhere in China.
200 million. Somebody said.
And they keep track of everything that you're doing, and they give you a score based on whether or not the actions that you're taking support the Politburo, or whatever it's
Whatever
called.
they call it. Yeah.
over
the
there.
regime.
That's right. And so, very interesting that if you look online, and I almost had the video, I was trying to get the video for our viewers here, and of the little squares that it keeps track of your face as you walk through the streets.
Well, it reminds me of that the series that's on Netflix called
Person of interest.
Person of Interest. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, just like that.
constantly-
Go watch the first one of those and see what happens.
Yeah, very interesting. But to me, as scary as this sounds when you see it in the context of China and what they're doing, their government using it, I actually am pretty convinced that this kind of thing is going to be pretty prevalent in the future, but through private enterprise. That is to say, companies will keep track of you for specific purposes to know how inclined you are to buy their products. And they'll have all sorts of algorithms and scores, like your credit score, that are built into this thing, but it won't be necessarily, hopefully, a government-controlled and monitored and manipulated system. Like you could imagine a system like that whereby there's a Trumpometer or something, and everything that you do is measured in how well you support President Trump or any candidate.
Well, already, I can tell you right now that already there's a rather significant interloping, or whatever you want to call it, on my Facebook page, for instance. The ads that I see are stuff that I might have looked at on eBay.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I
for
mean,
sure.
it's just, I mean, they
all
are
the browsers keep track of it.
And I mean, they are, and what the problem is that I've had this before is, okay, I'll buy it. It doesn't shut them up.
Oh,
I still get
no,
the
that
ads.
doubles the ads.
That doubles,
man.
yeah,
That
doubles
means
the
you
ads.
actually spent some money on it. Not that you look at
There's
it.
this one thing. There's this one ad that pops up about when you're going down the news feed or something like this on one of them, and it's this ad for some kind of sealant, and it's like every third or fourth story.
Right.
And then
yeah.
I'm going like, shut up. Can I
Well,
get?
that's what sucks is it's still not quite good enough. Like if you go and it doesn't know, for example, if you're looking at a story because you think it's ridiculous versus
Right.
whether you think it's entertaining.
Right.
And so sometimes it'll pitch you stuff that you hate.
Right.
And you're like, shut up.
Yeah.
But what can you do? So
Well, what you can do, of course, is you do your VPN and your DuckDuckGo, and
that, yeah, or I just keep overwriting it with new advertisement situations.
yeah. But as far as the social engineer, the social thing is, of course, what it does is they were showing this girl who's actually pretty high up in her what she does. She's a private person, and she's purely successful, and she has said that she knows that they're following her for her grade,
Right.
whatever it is. So naturally, you start to do stuff. Your behavior
Right.
is you always,
Modified.
yeah, exactly.
Just
I mean,
slightly.
and that's what I guess that's what they're hoping. Of course, it's all going to be
Yeah.
fake. I mean, if you sit there, like, as I say, like in 1984 or something, where they're all watching, and of course,
Well, that's what I mean. It doesn't have to be fake. You could have a system that's not fake. You could have a system that keeps track of your spending habits, for example, and then it sends you
That I
a
can
notice
understand,
that
but I meant if
says
when the
you
government
spent too
does
much
it.
on food this month or something.
okay.
or-
Oh yeah.
I mean, things like that. I mean, which is it's helpful AI, and this goes back in. I mean, there's going to be a lot of helpful algorithms. For example, this is my favorite story of the week. Was actually there's two parts to it. One is there's an AI that's running a family, not a family, but a company farm, and it's a big algorithm that keeps track of all the different measurements throughout the farm, the moisture and the temperature and the light and all that kind of stuff, and it provides routines and suggestions, work details for the employees as they show up in the morning. You clock in, and then it gives you a piece of paper. Do this, do that, and so it's interesting. And of course, it keeps track of myriad details
Right.
throughout the night and everything that. Now, a supervisor doesn't have to come in and check a bunch of stuff in the morning.
Right.
They just have the computer do it. It's all ready. So that's nice. But then contrast that with, this is my favorite story of the week was MIT. So in Philadelphia, there's a school system that wanted to improve or change. They wanted to improve their bus service for their schools, their private or their public school system, and they wanted to change a bunch of high school start times to later in the day, recognizing that a lot of their students were sleep deprived in high school. So they were going to adjust the bus schedules, and so they employed a couple of mathematicians from MIT to create an algorithm to solve certain problems. And of course, they gave the builders a few different parameters. They gave it school time switching, saving money, parental happiness, and one other calculation. So anyway, then they asked the administrators to take a look at the results of whatever it is they wanted to put into the algorithm. And so what do you think happened?
The administrators poo-pooed it.
Dang it, you got it. Yeah, they basically ended up firing the guys, shutting down the algorithm. The supervisor who brought it in had to quit. He had to resign and everything, all because they changed a bunch of people's schedules around. And the people couldn't adjust well enough in their daily lives. For example, middle school parents who formerly had to get their kids at 9 a.m. to school, now they had to get them there at 7:15 or something. So they had to quit jobs and do all kinds of adjustments.
Right.
And it pissed a whole bunch of people off.
Right.
And so, of course, the administrators came back and said, well, you can never please these people. It's impossible. Look at this. We built the perfect computer to take into account way more than any person could ever take into account. And yet we still have a bunch of pissed off people. And of course...
You would expect.
Well, exactly. But why?
Because, people are creatures of habit. I mean, they have their whole lives around. So, like you say, If your whole life is around a 9 o'clock beginning of middle school, and you change it to 5 minutes of 9, you're going to have an uproar. Don't even mention 7:30.
Well, right. But what's so great about the story is that they considered the AI, the algorithm, to be superior to a human, and it is superior to a human.
Right.
But it's not superior to all of the humans.
No, that's right.
And this is the mistake that they made is, look, you're trying to fit them into this stupid school system that you created with your stupid start times and your bus schedules and everything, instead of allowing all these people to make independent decisions about what matters to them.
Right.
Whether their job starts at this time and that time, and which school they can get to at what start time.
Too many variables.
Too many variables for the MIT computer to take into account, but not too many variables for the free market to take into account.
Right.
Which is what would happen if they sold off the schools and made the whole system private.
Right. Yeah.
All those people could satisfy themselves individually.
Right.
But you're never going to put them into a school system in a happy way based on 4 parameters that are decided by 2 mathematicians, and because those are the only parameters that you allow them to take into account. And it's interesting that was the fail to try to put these people in the square pegs in the second system, whereas the first thing, even though the AI that controls the family farm is really controlled by one guy, and he determines the parameters, all he's doing is making improvements on people's voluntary decisions, versus the other one, they're still forcing people to...
Well, of course, the government-run school system is always enforced by violence, because if you don't go, eventually they're going to show
They're
up.
still taking your money.
And they're going to show up with a gun and put your parents in jail or something for truancy.
And take your kid.
Take your kid, that's right. One of the things that, when you talk about this, you remember that Simpsons episode where the geniuses decided to take over...
Oh, right, the Mensa group.
The Mensa, huh? Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I know, you're Mensa. but I mean, and of course it was just a total unmitigated
disaster.
Disaster. So that's what
One
happened.
of the best episodes.
Oh,
for
no, it
sure.
really was. Wasn't that the one that had a Stephen Hawking in it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good.
Larry Flint is right. Best one ever. But yeah, unintended consequences. Interesting though, but just one or 2 examples of how AI may or may not be successfully integrated into our future.
Well, if the government runs it, there's just no way. They can't get anything right anyway. It all ends up being politics anyway. I mean, decisions are made based on somebody's, staying elected, getting elected.
Well, that's the whole point. If you've taken the decisions away from the individuals, then you've necessarily given it to some political person.
Right.
And that's what we're saying, is that entire structure is just at its core at fault. If the AI in the family farm makes a decision and puts the farm out of business, one farm goes out of business.
Right.
No big deal.
Right.
But if this MIT program does something wrong, it can't do everything right. It can't take into account not only all of the desires of all the people involved, but all their changing desires.
Right.
Well, they're constantly changing.
Well,
desires.
that's one of the things I've always talked about is the what I call the cereal aisle.
Uh-huh.
And you look at the cereal aisle. There's one entire aisle with every kind of imaginable cereal you can imagine, made out of everything you can imagine. And the simple fact is that when you go down and you pick a box, you have made a momentous decision on the market. If you choose Cheerios, that affects the oat farmer. It disincentivizes the wheat farmer. The box, it either fires or unfires the designers of the box in that particular. I mean, it goes back.
Advertisers.
There's 10,000 people involved in whether or not you pick up that box or the one next to it.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that literally. Now, of course, normally that's all wrapped up into the price. But it can also be just a regular desire. I'm willing to pay a little extra for Cheerios or something.
Sure.
But the point is that the desire, it changes every second.
Right.
That it changes. And how are you going to keep track of that? You can't.
Right.
You just can't. Now, I mean, Walmart tries to, because they have the on demand, when somebody rings up something that goes right, immediately telegraphs back to someplace and they know to replenish it. But I mean, they've got some stuff that kind of figures that. But it's all private. And if they screw up, then they're going to be stuck with, 73 size 12 dresses.
Mm-hmm.
extra. No, 73,000 of them or whatever, you know. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's what I had pretty much for today.
The final thing I'll just say is, interestingly, and this goes back to the Kavanaugh hearing again. I haven't heard a lot about ageism this week, and yet I hear people just literally throwing the senators under the bus for being old.
And white.
Okay.
And men.
Well, right. Well, look, I'm giving them those two right at this point, okay? Because you know we're going to get called out for being white and men, but old. I mean, that includes the old women who are of color as well. I mean, are you saying old? And I mean, I literally heard people say they're letting those men ask them questions, and they're old. Like, oh, okay. So we'll see if that comes back to bite anybody at this point. I just thought it was funny that we hadn't heard a lot about that yet.
I got one more little thing.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Let me just finish this off. I pulled this off of the
Campus reform?
This was, well, no, what it was. This is the welcoming package, part of the welcoming package to Cornell. And what it is, it's designed to say if you're a privileged person or not. And so they come up with these things called gender. If you're in groups that experience privilege, men. Groups that are marginalized or oppressed, women, transgender, queer, intersex, okay. Gender identity, non-trans or transgender, so forth. Let's see, sexual orientation, heterosexual, okay. But if you're oppressed, gay, lesbian, bisexual, queer, questioning, age, whatever it is, 30s to 50s, younger and older than those numbers. But this is you're supposed to go down and check this and see if you're one of the oppressed people or if you're privileged. And so, I went down this thing and I'm trying to think, here's one: use of English. Quote, proper English, or if you're unprivileged, if you're marginalized, accented English, another primary language. A size or appearance, particularly tall or short, perceived as unattractive, etc. But let's see, ethnicity: Puerto Rican, Dine, I don't know what that is, Mexican, Nigerian, Jewish, Russian, Chinese, Iranian, etc. Those are your ones that are marginalized. I mean, on and on. You're supposed to go through this and find out if you're a marginalized person.
What do you get?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. I don't. This is it's by some group called Campus Reform. But I mean, this is amazing that it's come to this. That this is part of the welcoming package. And I'm looking at this thinking,
kids, have you been abducted?
Ability, disability, temporarily able-bodied is if you're privileged. People with a physical, mental, emotional, or learning disability are marginalized. So. This is a new welcoming package.
Well, this is amazing to me that they don't understand that they are separating people out.
Yeah.
In these categories.
Absolutely. I mean,
they're not being more inclusive; they're being exclusive.
No, that's exactly right. So I guess maybe they have probably on, like we have here, we've got Hispanic club and stuff like that, and maybe they have clubs for all of these people over here. If your gender identity is, they have the transgender club, people of color club.
Sure, I mean, that's one thing. If you want to, I mean, of course, that, what I'm, what I'm concerned, or I don't know, concerned or whatever, it seems like they're going to use these differences to treat people differently.
Right.
Which is like the opposite of
inclusiveness.
Yeah, I mean, it's just bizarro world that they would start out separating people out. It reminds me of this book from law school. So notations are very, very important. Citations are very, very important in law.
Yeah. And
so it's very important that you notate where your sources are very, very precisely. And so to that end, they have developed extremely specific ways to write down what your source is. For example, if you're citing a book, you write down the volume and the publisher date and the time and the author or something like that, and you have a colon here and a comma there and that kind of stuff. And if you're citing a pamphlet or a paper, you have the colon in a different place or a semicolon here or whatever. So there's this book in law school that's called The Uniform System of Citation. Okay, the uniform system, which implies one form, uniform, right? It's 400 pages. 400 pages of different citations. Now there's at least 20 different citations on each page. So that's 80,000 different ways to write down where you got the information from. So the question you have to ask yourself is, who knows more than like 10,000 ways? I mean, there is no possible way that there's any information conveyed by the way that you notate a case anymore, because you can't say, look, well, I put the colon here, that indicates it's a paper, but out of a research report, but it's a college paper, and you can see it's in italics, so this was one that was written before the author was 18, and just on and on and on, and it's impossible. It defeats the entire purpose is what I'm getting at. So I don't know, this to me is the antithesis of this.
It was interesting when I was
cut that all out.
Well, yeah. Well, when I was doing my research paper in high school, we had 4 ways, I think, to do citations. That was it. We had 4, and I, one of the things I've gotten to the point now when I do, and they had, the problem was they had to be at the bottom of the page in footnotes, and of course when you're typing, manual typing, how do you do that? How do you adjust for that to make sure that it all fits to? That was a nightmare. Now you can do it a lot better. And of course, one of the things that a lot of people do is just shove it at the end of the end. They just do the footnote, and you have to leaf over to the end to do it. But still, there were 4 different ways. If it's a poem or something, but still, I don't know if you got graded on it. I mean, I don't know what happened. This citation is wrong.
Yeah.
What, you don't know where it came from? There's the name of the book. There's the year. There's the author. Don't tell me.
Well, that's the thing these days. And these days, everything is a web notation as well.
Right.
When I first started out, they were just starting with web notations. They were like, what is this? What is a website?
Well, this is one of the things that gets me about the law, too, in that one of the things when they're rewriting the laws, they'll go through and they'll cite the former law.
Right.
Or they'll say, substitute this, it has been substituted something from, and you're looking back and boy, you have to get all these.
That's why you always see lawyers with the 12 books sitting out
right,
there. It's
right.
like, I'm trying to read this one paragraph in this one book, and I have to reference all these other books to read this one paragraph.
Right.
The only thing I can say in its defense is that if you follow all the little pointy things to all the different things, you'll get a complete paragraph at the end of it all. It's like a puzzle.
Yeah.
But you have to put it together that way. So, well, all right, that's all I got, and right on time.
Right on time. Yep.
Hey.
That was good.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. We will be back Wednesday
at
4 o'clock.
Yep. And
maybe we'll have some more news on when what's her name's going to testify.
Yeah, well, for sure by then we'll have probably. Oh, that's right. No, she may be doing it on Thursday or something, and that's if she goes now. Who knows? Maybe delayed.
Well, the thing about it is that what we're going to know is we're going to know if. So apparently certifiably if she's going to go on Thursday or when she's going to go. So far they haven't decided on the date of the venue or anything. I don't believe. There's been some suggestions thrown up in the air.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, we will.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Come back and see us anytime. Like I said, 4 o'clock here, twice a week. Jimmy Doan on YouTube. See you soon.
I got my